There we are. I'm so sorry, guys. I, for whatever reason, had the wrong one in there. So I appreciate y'all. Oh, you're muted. Can't
How you
hear
do?
you.
How you doing, buddy?
Here we go. I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Good. Sorry about that, gang. Thanks for blowing up my phone and messaging me and letting me know that I'm on the wrong one. So that's my bad. That's totally all me. I was like, how come no one's here? A bunch of people said that they were going to come here. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll just let it roll. But anyways, appreciate you guys. Does anyone have a question about land off the bat that they for sure want to get to? Otherwise, I have a few different ideas of things that I want to cover today, or at least teach about or learn or whatever. But if you guys have questions, fire away.
How to get
And
started?
how to get started? It's a great question. It's a great question. Let's do this. Let's go. I'm gonna share my screen here. Can you guys see that okay? Let me do that.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Perfect. Cool. So how to get started? Let's talk about that because it is probably the hardest part is probably figuring out where to get started, how to get started. So best way to do to start out is go on Zillow. And if you're looking for a piece of land that's for sale, looking to try and potentially flip some land, whatever that may be, just go into Zillow and somebody give me a state. Give me a state or a region or something like that.
Kansas City.
Tennessee.
Tennessee, Kansas City. Let's see here. Let's go halfway in between. Let's go like let's go maybe like right in here. Ooh, there's a whole bunch around Nashville. Let's see what's in like Kentucky. How about that? We'll split the difference. All right. So let's check out maybe like right around here. So best thing to do right off the bat, we can go to for sale. And then if you want to go over here to property types, we're going to look at lots and land. So lots and land, that's what we're looking for here. I'll hit apply. And then there's kind of a couple different ways that you can look at it here initially. One way is that you can look at it on market. The second way is off market. So if we're going to look at off market, or I don't want to call it off market because technically these are all in Zillow. I guess let me call it maybe more like listed with a broker on the MLS and then listed by for sale by owner. So let's break it up maybe into those two. And in this case, let's start with for sale by owner because I think should be fairly self-explanatory, but I don't want to assume anything. Fairly self-explanatory to find something with a broker. That's pretty much just about any of these. So let's find something that's for sale by owner because that would be potentially an easier way just directly to the seller. So under the filters and listing type, you want to hit right here. You see how it says owner posted? That's the only type that we want checked in through here. All right, that's probably going to be our best way to find those. Under listing status, active, coming soon, great. Zillow preview, that is like brand new. I don't even know what that is. But let's see what it says. Expected to hit the market soon. Okay, interesting. You can also go accepting backup offers or pending under contract if you desire, because oftentimes contracts can fall through. Um, then, if you're looking for particular lot size, which normally I'm looking around 1 acre and up, then you can punch in your acreage size. You can punch in whatever maximum size you want. And then as you keep scrolling down through here, the days on Zillow filter is going to be something that essentially you can kind of take a look at and decide if it's how much, I don't want to call it like motivation because it's not necessarily always directly tied to motivation, but if you have somebody who's had something for sale for say, man, 12 months, a year, right? You're going to have more, maybe potentially more likely, more motivation to go and sell versus if you have somebody who's only had like 30 days on market, right? So that pretty much kills all of them. But let's say we're hunting for something that's been over 12 months on the market. We'll hit apply, and then we can kind of zoom out. Now we can kind of get a better idea of for sale by owner. So let's look up through here in Evansville. Um, this might be something good. So let's take a look at, we'll just start on this one. A little 5 acres for sale by owner. We'll come in and check it out. How I analyze a Zillow listing, if you will, is first thing I'll do, I'll look at how many acres it has, the price point, it has an address. Okay, great. Some of these pieces of land do not have an address at all. So it'll just say 0 Saltzman Road, or it might not even, it'll maybe say X, whatever, Saltzman Road. So sometimes they aren't even listed in here. It looks like this one is. I'll take a look at the photos because there are also too a few different ways that you can kind of gauge how aggressive and how willing they are to sell. One is if they have really good photos. If they don't have really good photos, then what you can do is you can go, oh, maybe this hasn't sold because it has crappy photos. And that might be something more to take a look at. So let's take a look at the photos. Looks to be pretty nice. Wondering if that maybe that barn or that outbuilding there is potentially on it. Nice little potential little lake here. Not bad. Nice little swing. Pictures
Ooh,
like this too really, really help with sales. The main reason being is because people can picture themselves sitting on this bench, swinging with their significant other or whatever, and then having their kids swing over here. I mean, I know Mike loves this picture. A
yes,
nice
that sold
little
me.
largemouth bass in there. So that tells me that, oh, sweet, maybe that pond has some really good fishing in it. So who knows? Mike might want to actually buy this. Um, and we're looking at it. Okay, cool. Here's some pictures for this building. So it looks like there's some building. Looks like it's more like a glorified man cave garage, if you will. At least has a little toilet, little workbench area there. Um, so something to kind of take a look at. Let's go to the overview of this. So looks like 5 acres. That building it mentions in there, which obviously we knew about that. Can build something a little bit hobby farm, whatever that may be. Looks like it's only been listed for 19 days. Here's something that's super interesting. So look how many views it has. 2,100 views. That's a lot. 2,100 views, 87 saves in 19 days. That tells me that this property is getting a lot of looks. A lot of people are really looking at it. One thing that we look for, I don't want to call it the golden ratio or the golden rule when you look at these, but ideally, if you what you want when you list something like this is that you want 10% of your views to be saves. That's how you know people are really, really tracking and really, really following it. So if you're at 2183, you want 218 saves. Now, obviously, as the views go up higher, it's going to be harder to get that kind of golden ratio or rule, if you will. But what that can tell you though is as I look around and I look around this area, I'm going, wow, there's a lot of people looking in this area. There's a lot of people saving. This might be a really good place to see if we can find another property, whether it be this one property, for sale by owner or not, or whatever it is. So that's one thing that I'll also pay attention to. 19 days on Zillow. There's one other piece down here that I want to show you guys. 19 days on Zillow, and he price cut it, what, 5 days after? Kind of interesting. That makes me wonder, wow, he must really want to actually get rid of this. If he's already price cut it 5 days within, 19 days within. So it sounds like he's probably ready to, he or she, shouldn't assume he, but potentially she is ready also to get rid of this parcel. Um, so something like that, super interesting to see. Let's go up to the map here, and I'm just going to expand it. Then I always look at lot lines because now look, this tells me a lot about what's going on here. What do you guys see? Oh, as I zoomed out too far. Is there anything around it?
The other parcel.
Yeah, the other parcel, but otherwise, all I see right now is farm fields. Oh, there's a house, a couple of houses. So it's definitely a little bit more of a rural area, right? Maybe some houses, more houses up here. But overall, though, it looks pretty to be pretty rural in nature. Where'd it go now? No, I lost it. There it is. So it looks to be pretty rural in nature. It looks like it's kind of a house at the end of the road and kind of has its own road, if you will. So maybe potentially a very specific buyer. So when you look at people who were there, this thing got a ton of views because I think the photos are really good. I'm sure the bass photo, I'm sure that swing photo certainly gets people's attention. The fact that there's a pond certainly gets people's attention. They want that. Those are things that are very desirable. The reason why this probably hasn't moved yet, and I'm taking a guess, is because if you look around, it's out on a farm field. All right. So let's take a little bit different of a look at it here. So there's a software out there. There's two of them. All right. I'm just going to copy this. Then there's two softwares out there, and both of them have a free version. So if you guys are interested in this, they both have a free version. One is called Land Insights, which is this one. We're going to pull that up right now. All right. And then there's another one called Land Portal, and we'll plug it in on Land Portal as well. So if that ever loads on my internet. But what we can do though is that we can take a look, and here it is. Here's the parcel. I'm gonna delete that really quick. I don't know why it's making me do this. Maybe we're going to land portal. All right. I don't want to put them on blast here, but essentially now we can kind of zoom out and get a little bit more of a idea of what the heck is going on around there. There's a whole bunch of farm fields, a little bit of woods back through here. So your buyer is pretty dang specific in through here. Let's see here. Here's Evansville. That looks like it's the kind of largest town around. Maybe Mount Vernon might have a little bit in there as well. And so we kind of take a look at this and go, okay, cool. You know, kind of see some things around there. You can kind of see a few houses. That looks great. If we go back to the Zillow listing, let's take a look what else is around it for sale. Not a lot. A couple over here in Evansville. What I'm going to do real quick is I'm actually going to put all of these, the ones that are for sale around there. Let's just check it out. So it looks like there's a local competition here, 150 acres, or excuse me, 150,000. Let's take a look at this one. So this looks like, again, we're kind of going to do the same thing here. Looks like there's potentially a pond on here, maybe a little bit of a shed. It looks like it's probably on this side of the road. Maybe some more bass in that pond. Looks maybe a little bit shallower. Yep, there you go. Anytime you see something like this, where it's kind of highlighted out like that, that can also potentially mean that it's a land investor who's already listing it, or a realtor who's known in the land space, does the land space, because they'll know that these drone photos can certainly be super helpful. And outlining like this is kind of like that next extra step that will really help land listings sell. So look at that, 7 acres, so pretty close to what we have. What our other one was, 150,000. That looks like that is it on the description. So pretty generic description, nothing crazy. 82 days, 700 views, 29 saves. 82 days, but it still has 700 views. I think that's not too terribly bad. 29 saves, that's certainly not bad. So a lot of people are kind of just keeping their eye on this. If we look down here, no price drop. So might be something just to kind of keep in the back of our mind. Looks like there's another property right down the street from it. Oh, the other side of the road. Cool. Again, you can kind of see a little bit of a highlight like that. Overview, overview. Some horses on there, some fencing. All these things can certainly help in terms of looking at, here you go. Somebody who loves horses or has a horse, this is definitely AI generated, I'm pretty sure. Those horses look way too pristine, don't they? All right. So looking at something like that, again, just kind of scrolling through photos real quick, checking that out. Here you go. So this is another really good point that you can put in here. See all these different power, all that different power that's essentially shown there, the utilities that are there. That's really beneficial for a few different reasons. Number one, A, we know we have power right there, which is super helpful. B, it also tells people too, oh, this place, I don't have to go and pull power from another road and then pull it all the way into my lot in order to be able to build a house on it. So it just kind of helps with the next steps if somebody was to buy this and build a house on it, which is probably the most likely like route that people are going to go with this. Nice little barn right there. Um, some hay, looks like some horses. So kind of maybe those are their horses. Um, so another kind of cool little route property here, just right across the street. 42 days, 409 views, 21 saves. Pretty good, I would say overall. Um, it's zoned residential and surveyed back in late 2023, which is super helpful. So we already know, okay, it has power, it's zoned for residential, it was surveyed, so we know exactly where the property lines are. Super, super helpful. When you go to build on a house or build on a piece of land like this, the county will oftentimes have what's called setbacks. And setbacks are essentially, hey, I need to be so far back from the road. I need to be so far into the parcel. Say it's like 100-foot setback from the main road and 50 feet from either side and 100 feet from the back again, right? So now all of a sudden your parcel shrinks down and into your buildable area. So having a survey out there is already like it's another check box that needs to be done in order to get a homestead. So that looks pretty dang. Oh no, that looks pretty good. Another way, so we can kind of start seeing, okay, here's three kind of properties. So that 219 is probably a little high, but there's a house, barn on it, pond, but it's smaller. So let's take a look and let's see what has sold. And if we go down, yeah, last 12 months, there's like nothing that's been sold around there. Maybe this would be like your closest comp. 11 acres. Not bad. This looks like another like home site ag field kind of thing. There you go. Here's your map for it. Okay, here you go. So it's kind of a odd shaped piece of land. Looks like some homes behind it as well. So kind of an interesting one. Soil test, that's super nice. That was already done. So 220, potentially a good comp here. Let's actually put the filters in here because we're looking at 5 to 10 acres. Here's 190. Okay. So right in through here, this would probably be like your closest comp if we're looking at how to comp and looking at the different like the different area. Now you got a neighbor right there. However, a lot of road frontage, which can be good. Nice plot of land, some trees right along the road. Overall, I'd say this is probably like your closest comp. When we look at comps, right, the best thing that we want to do is we want to take a look at price per acre. And this is how I kind of look at it. So if we go $190,000 divided by 10 acres, that's 19,000 per acre, right? Is my math correct there? Should be. Yeah, 19,000 per acre. So when we look at that, okay, 19,000 per acre. Let's see what this one is. See if this is kind of close. Okay, this looks like it has a whole bunch of barns and looks like it's an old farm. Probably not a good comparison, even though there's some buildings on ours. There's three buildings though instead of one building. So maybe not necessarily the best comp to look at. Let's try and see if we can go back even to like 36 months, see if we got something else. Here's 80,000. Okay. Wow, that one went really low. All right, so it looks like it's track one or track two, trying to figure out exactly what that is. But and it looks like it has kind of this easement or it has this little access road right in through here, about 35 feet of road frontage. So this one also too, maybe not necessarily the best comp because if you have slim access like this, and then it goes into a bigger tract. Some people really like that. Some people don't like that at all. They want to be able to see the road. Some people don't want to see the road. Um, and so, to the right buyer, this is like the perfect property. To most buyers, they're not a huge fan of these skinny, we call them almost flagpole lots, where you have this small little easement in through here. You either love it or you hate it. So it all just depends on your buyer. That one, though, is probably going to be a little bit harder of a comp just because it's not quite the same. So let's go. Ideally, normally you want to try and find a few different comps that are within that area, but we'll just say it's 19,000 per acre in terms of kind of to shorten up the time. So if we were to take this lot, right, let me bust out my calculator here. So 5 acres times 19,000, the estimate would be 95,000 for this. And you're going, well, what the heck? This is at 219. Why is it so much more? Well, a couple different reasons. Number one, there's a some sort of structure on there. Anytime you get a structure on there, that's going to increase the value for sure. Other features like the pond, the swing. I know it sounds weird, but sometimes those swings can like make or break a buyer. I'm not sure that's necessarily going to increase the value. However, the pond certainly will. The pond will certainly increase the value because people want some sort of water feature. It's calming, it's nice. And so that's kind of what I see on there. Is it worth 219,000? Maybe, probably not. I'm gonna say it's probably closer to like 150 to 160 because this is what you have on your other competition, right? If we go 7.49 acres times 19,000, this is probably a little bit closer. 7.49 acres times 19,000 is $142,310. So about 142,000 listed at 150. Probably a little bit closer to what you're going to get actual market value. If we go to the other one, 9.87 times 19,000, 187,000. So maybe a little bit slightly above asking price or above market value. However, they're probably also expecting somebody to come in with 10,000-ish dollars less. So that's kind of how we look at real quick, like comping of land and seeing if it's like in the ballpark. Now, things that you'll see like these like 5 acres, something like this, and it'll be like 450,000. That person's just fishing. They're just trying to throw something out there, see if it sells. If it sells, then they'll move. But overall, though, these aren't actually too bad in terms of comps around them. Um, that's probably like one of the best ways to start. If it's close, like that is your starting point. Then it's okay, cool. This person, this seller is close on price. Let's give them a call and see where they're at. See, hey, are you open to negotiation? Different things and different strategies that you can do. Are you open to seller financing? Are you open to a little bit of a lower offer? XYZ. There's all sorts of different ways that you can go about it once you start that conversation. Which of course we can talk through too if you guys want, but that's kind of where I would go in terms of like how to comp. Ideally, you have a few more comps in the area where you can kind of take a look at, especially in the sold comps to try and figure out like here, there's a bunch of sold comps around here. But does that kind of answer your question, Mike? I know, that's like a real quick overview of like where to start.
Yeah, It's great.
Awesome. Let's see here. Evan, did you have a question?
Yeah, so curious as far as if you've got like a piece of land that has like this is waterfront property,
Hmm.
but there's no other like properties around that have that kind of acreage and or it's a riverfront property. How
Hmm.
would you go about doing something like that?
Yeah. So that's a great question because that happens quite frequently. And first off, anytime you have some sort of water feature on the piece of land, whether it's a creek running in the backside or straight through it or waterfront, that's going to drive the value up. The main reason being is because people want those type of features and therefore it's going to cost more, right? So if you're looking at a piece that doesn't have any comps around it, right? So if it's like, like I'm just gonna say, hey, like let's say you have something and like it's a piece of land over here, it's 5 acres, 10 acres, I don't know what it is, right? And it's on land, but there's like nothing around it that is also on water. Those become really tricky to comp. And what I've done in the past is I'll look around and see what the Zestimate is for Zillow. And if there's houses on it or not or whatever, I'll take a look at that. I will also too call a local realtor. Not the list. If it's on market, don't call the listing one, right? Because they're obviously going to try and steer you towards the price that it
Yeah.
is. If it's off market, I would call just like a local realtor and be like, hey, I'm looking at this parcel, and you can even tell them like, hey, I would love for you to possibly represent me. I'm just trying to gather some info about this lot. Here's this lot, it's on this lake. How would you value it? And just ask them because sometimes that local knowledge is really going to be key. You can find that both in like on lakefront. You can also too say like here's a highway. Say you have a piece of land that's like right here, and then you have another piece of land just north of the highway. Those can be like south of the highway can be 100,000 and north of the highway can be 450,000. Same 5, 10 acres, whatever the parcel is, and it can be literally double or triple. And so oftentimes knowing that market is super, super important. When I'm looking and evaluating a piece of land and I'm unsure about the market, I'll go and I'll find some realtors in the area, and I can explain possibly how to go through that as well to try and help you about how to try and go and find those realtors that would know actual market value of it. But does that make sense? It's a really kind of challenging question to answer because there's so many variables when you throw out that one. The best piece of advice I can give you is call a realtor or like, you're happy. I'm happy to take a look at it too and give you a little bit more in depth on Land Portal and Land Insights here. We do have a little bit more specifics where we can pull up more data in there where it'll pull a little bit better comps for them. Um, but I obviously I want to show you guys Zillow because that's a free version. That's a free software. It's the one to go to get started. Um, but that's one thing though that I would really do is I would kind of go and build a relationship with a local realtor who does land in the area.
So I was able to pull up on the parcel that I'm looking at as far as county records, tax records, and all that, and they've got it
Awesome.
valued right at pretty much market value of what the county has set it at.
The
Um,
tax assessment is?
yeah.
Okay.
Um, and it's it's actually 88 acres. It's here local to me. There used to be a dairy farm, but yeah, so I'm trying to figure out ways to I figure it'd either be a good for RV park or doing like a tiny home because it sits on one of the top 100 trout fishing rivers and it has
Nice.
almost, I think it's got like over 3,000 square feet of frontage on the river.
Sweet. You got all sorts. You're starting to talk to Mike. Well, I don't know if Mike is a trout fisherman, but I know. Okay, all right, he is. So there you go. You might have a buyer right there. But okay, so tell me more about that. First thing I wanna ask and just make clear. Sometimes tax assessment and market value can be totally different.
Yeah.
So just be careful when you're looking at like the tax assessed portion of it and then the actual market value. Most of the time, now this is not a not a 100% steadfast rule, but most of the time that tax assessed price is lower or significantly lower than the actual market value of the land. And that more depends by state as well, because some states will have high land tax. However, they'll value the tax assessed value is like way lower, right? So the taxes still come out the same. Or other states have super high assessed value but low tax percentage. And so, but the tax rate is still the same, right? So you're going to have low assessment and high tax rate, or high tax assessment, low tax rate. And you can have anything in between, obviously, as well, but just be cautious of that when you start looking at like comparing your price on tax assessment versus like retail value, if that makes sense. Your other question within that, what was the other question? I'm sorry, I'm blanking. What was the other question that you asked about that?
Um,
Like the water frontage?
yeah, as far as just the water frontage and all that was more, yeah,
Oh,
just how to
RVs.
value. Yeah, RV parks, tiny
Okay.
home community.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, cool. So let's talk about that for a second. So when we look at RV park, tiny home, whatever it is, you're looking at some sort of resort or hospitality potentially play on it. Do you know what the zoning is on it?
it's agriculture right now.
Okay,
And I've actually talked to my county office on it and said
great.
there is a possibility to be able to present it to the city council and possibly look at getting it rezoned into the requirements that it would need for the RV parks or something along those lines.
Sweet. So you're already like going down the path. I freaking love it. All right. So this is really good. A couple of really, really good points to think about. When you go and you get something like first you checked zoning. So nice job, Devin. That's awesome. Like that's step one because people are like, oh, I want to put this on there. And then it's zoned totally different, right? Ag
Yeah.
land as well. And this is something to like look at if you're going to go through and actually be the developer on it. Ag land also is taxed, generally speaking, at a significantly lower rate because because farmers essentially are trying to get some tax benefits, trying to like if you had farmland and you had 10,000 acres and it was taxed at the same rate as like a residential, all the farmers would totally be out of money. Like there'd be no money in farming. So ag land, oftentimes that tax, A, it's taxed lower, and B, it's assessed lower. So just be aware of that when you're looking at underwriting it and into like the development phase of it, right? Because you're all of a sudden you're going to have a big tax hike, all right, in that for sure. Rezoning. So go and if you're already looking at like calling, if you're already calling the county and everything like that, and you're looking at getting that rezoned, call the county's planning committee and see what their requirements are for getting that rezoned and ask them point blank, hey, you know, how likely is this to actually pass? Is there pre-approval, right? Is there a pre-approval process that you can apply and do and whatever? Because sometimes they will tell you yes. I actually just put a offer in on a parcel in Indiana. It's going to be a minor subdivide. So it's 30 acres. I'm going to subdivide it into about 5, 6 acre parcels. And the county said, "Hey, we can pre-approve you for this." And so I'm going, "Oh, sweet, this is great. Pre-approval, awesome." And then I found out what all the county rules are, the timelines. Do I have to go in front of a city board or a committee or a public hearing? Right? Those are all really, really important questions because once you go up into a public hearing, And now all of a sudden, the local community might say, no, we don't want this, and can potentially get voted down. So take that into consideration when you start putting offers into land, because you just never know. You want to know what that is, especially if you have that one exit strategy. I would also say too, in terms of exit strategies, make sure that you have more than one exit strategy on it, right? So if you get at a price where you can still turn it and make a little bit of money, awesome. If you're gonna go RV park, tiny homes, that's one exit strategy. Selling it off to somebody to buy it would be another exit strategy, right? Selling it to flip it, whatever it may be, homestead buyer, land banker, whatever it is. Make sure that you have multiple exit strategies. And if you only want tiny homes, then make your contract contingent on it rezoned and that zoning going through, right? So that's something super important to know, because then all of a sudden, I don't want you to get like stuck with a piece of land now you have under contract and you overpaid for it, and now you just have to turn around and take a loss on it, right? Because that's going to be really tough, right? Really tough to do, where you have to turn around and all of a sudden now sell it back to the market, and maybe you lose a little bit of money on it. So just be cognizant of that, but a few kind of things to like just look out for when you're looking at that. But that would kind of be like the next step I would take, is see what that process is for changing the zoning from ag, see what the city says, see what the county says. Because oftentimes too, those two sometimes it's the county's like say, sometimes it's the city's say. So whatever the
Yeah,
local city or township is.
this is
So just make
outside
sure you
of
come back in.
so this is outside of the city limits as far as it is considered county.
Okay.
Um, I dropped the link to you
Okay.
on.
I mean, I'm happy to take a look at it, but also too, I don't want to share it unless you're comfortable with that. So you tell me if that's something you're cool with. Otherwise, if not, we can talk outside of these office hours too to try and help you out on that as well. So up here, I dropped out of it here a little bit. But essentially what you do is you go and you call the county, whatever county it is, and you would have them double check, pull up the for sales. So you'd say, hey, this parcel, let's say this one. I'm assuming that I mean, there's already septic or sewer, but let me pull up maybe one that doesn't quite have it yet. Let's look at like the horse one, right? Because that one, I think, Mike, is that where you were thinking, like asking this question about septic and sewer when we were kind of talking about utilities?
Yeah, talking about utilities, and the other one has a toilet, so it has something going on.
Yep, 100%. So the best way to figure out if it is septic or sewer is to call the county and see about the GIS. That's probably the best way to figure that out. Or call the owner, ask them if they have septic or sewer. They should know. GIS too will be able to pull where that septic and sewer is coming from. They'll also be able to pull records to see, hey, is this person hooked up to city sewer? And are they paying their bill or whatever it is, right? Because they'll have some sort of record of that. My guess is that normally when it gets to be rural areas, right, like out here, it's probably on septic. But again, major assumption, because there might be on this Greenfield Drive, there might be sewer that comes all the way up here. And then you just have to tee and then you just tee it off at the road, and all of a sudden you can get in through there. But my guess is that it's probably more than likely septic in through here. So hopefully that kind of helps a little bit with that. Let's answer the question about the 160 acres and subdividing. Jeff, hey, there you are. Thanks for popping on.
Yeah, sure thing.
You want to give me a little bit more kind of context behind that so I can kind of help you a little bit more kind of dial it in?
Totally. Yeah, so the actual property is in a canyon, and then it has it's really deep canyon, but then you have to access it from the back road to get on the upper section. So we will actually need to put in a road that's about 1.5 to 2 miles long to access
Ooh,
that. But there's
okay.
some of the lots that have already been cleared. But I've seen in this actual location that Lots are selling for about 900,000. So I'm like, this is actually a worthy project. For these premium lots, the canyon is incredible, and it's only less than 5 miles from the close by town, but you get these amazing mountain views. You're located in a canyon, so we have to clear the trees to be able to access some of these properties, and then also build in a road that's about 2 miles long. Have you done
Okay.
anything like that, or any ideas?
Okay. All right. So, no, I love it. I love it. I love it. First, two, before
Yeah.
I forget, I'm going to take a little screenshot. So everyone
Okay.
smile because you guys are going to be blasted. It's going to be great. All right. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, Jeff, to answer your question,
Yeah.
do you know that sounds like a major subdivide or an entitlement play? Do you know the difference between a major subdivide and a minor subdivide?
Major,
It's
I'd
okay if you
actually,
don't.
well, if it's entitlement, I know that there's a long process to get permits for it. And it can actually turn it, it's like if you're building a subdivision, it's going to be like, 18 months out because you have to get
At
all the
least.
permits.
Yes.
It needs to pass multiple. So this is, I was kind of looking at to actually just because we're going to have to, I want to do maybe 10 lots on
Okay.
the upper side of this. So yeah,
Awesome.
I would love for you to
Love
explain it
this.
because yeah, I would love a deeper dive into what the difference is between those two.
Yes, of course. Absolutely. Happy to do that. So, first and foremost, you have minor subdivides, major subdivides, and then kind of entitlements, kind of, I'll explain kind of, it kind of goes in through there. So, a minor subdivide is, think of it this way, you have a parcel that essentially, like, say you have a 40-acre parcel, right? You have a 40-acre parcel, say it's just your classic, like, rectangular parcel. All right. And a minor subdivide means that you're just going to straight chop that into, like, let's say the county allows for for four plots. So you can subdivide one parcel into four separate parcels. Okay. So the county allows
Hmm.
that. And so you have a 40-acre parcel and you're going to chop it up into four 10-acre parcels. All the road frontage is already there. It, minor subdivide requires a certain number of road frontage or feet of road frontage per county, totally county dependent. But and all you're doing is you're just hiring a surveyor, and that surveyor is going, I mean, not all you're doing, there's a lot more that goes into it, but this is a high level overview of it. But essentially, that surveyor goes out and says, yep, from here to here is one parcel, and then from here to here is another parcel, here to here, and then here to here, right? And so you have your four different parcels now. It's platted, and then they record it, and all of a sudden you have four different parcels that you can legally own and subdivide. And that is considered a minor subdivide. So those are much easier, they're much faster. Like the one that I'm looking at in Indiana, that one is roughly, I'd say, I mean, that's probably going to be a 3 month process. So pretty dang quick. That's the one that can also get pre-approved, which can only speed that up, hopefully. Um, and then you have what's called a major subdivide. And a major subdivide, we're going to say it's that same county and say you have that same 40-acre section, right? And now you want to break it into 10 4-acre parcels. Okay. The county now is going to make you put in a road in order to be able to box out those 10 different parcels, right? They're going to make you put in a road. They're going to make you put in sewer, electric, and have hookups at each of those 10 parcels. It requires you to build that road, which is obviously much more expensive. It requires you to bring in the utilities, it requires you to bring in the electric, and that's where you start getting into what's called the entitlement process, which is going from taking a raw piece of land, which is potentially what you have here, and then making it into buildable parcels, right? And so anytime you go above whatever that minor subdivision rule is, it becomes what's called a major subdivision. And you have to take it through that entitlement process. That entitlement process does take much, much longer, like sometimes multiple years. However, as you know, the parcels at the end are much, much higher value. So oftentimes it's kind of like the give or take, right? Minor subdivide, I can subdivide it in 3 months, sell them off over the course of the next 6 months, and now all of a sudden I have 9 month total transaction time. A major subdivide might take you 9, 12 months for the paperwork. And then once that gets approved, then you're able to sort it through in the next 6 months to get everything ready and get construction in there and allow that now to be ready. And now you can start selling at month 18. And then you can sell off for the next year or so. And now all of a sudden you're at a 30-month total transaction time.
All right. Another question on
However, it can
this.
be much more lucrative, right? It
Yeah.
can, I mean, you can make millions off of entitlements. People purely do entitlements. I know a couple guys who do nothing but entitlements. They do 2 entitlements a year, one that finishes and one that they start. They try and start and finish one about every 6 months or so.
Hmm.
And I mean, they make like $1 million a year. So
Awesome.
yeah, can be super lucrative. It's just, can you do and take that time and actually through the whole process? It's risk reward. They also might spend $500,000 to make $1.5 million on the back end, right?
Okay.
So costs a lot of money up front, but also too the payoff can be significantly higher as well.
So for this actual property, getting the power to it, I've already
Mhm.
talked to the county and the city, and they said that I mean the cost is it's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. So is that enforceable by the county, or can we actually do an off-grid type system with like solar panels?
Explain that more. What do you mean by the county said like the cost? Like what? Tell me like more like
So,
what you mean.
so I actually had them look at the parcel of land and bringing
Mhm.
power to it. They
Yeah. How
said,
much it would
okay,
cost do you think?
we need to know where the box is, and then we have to charge. These are the flat fees that we charge for these things, and then we charge per every foot of cable that
Linear
we
foot.
have to do running to the property. And so when I figured it all out, it was a couple 100,000 just to, get the actual lines to the property. There is water on the property. They've already got it uh, to be able to set up a well.
Okay.
So that's great. I mean, they already know the cost of everything to do that. But since this is actually rural land, how necessary is it that I can actually keep it within a mini subdivide rather than a major subdivide?
That's a great question. I'm assuming this is a mountainous area,
It
correct?
is, yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. Okay. So whenever you get into mountainous areas, right, you need to look at the slope as well, right? So that's another thing to look at, right? Like how steep is it? And is it buildable on those slopes? The more steep and sloped it is, the more expensive it is going to be to build as well. So just kind of factor that in too on the back end. Just something I thought of.
So
Um,
the
oh,
slope is actually it's all buildable up top, which is
sweet.
fantastic. So there's probably like 20 acres of buildable. It just need to clear the trees.
Okay.
But the road actually getting up to those 20 acres it's pretty steep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Okay.
yeah, have you built roads before, or are you familiar with that process?
That is not my jam.
Okay,
I'm
all
not
right.
I'm not a major
Okay.
subdivide guy. However,
Yeah.
I know enough about it to be dangerous and to kind of, and I'll be
Okay.
honest, like I don't know how much it costs to build a road. I
Okay.
have no
All
idea,
right.
unfortunately.
Yeah,
Um,
no problem.
what I do know is that, once you start going down that road, right? If it costs you a couple 100,000 just to bring power to those lots, the price of those lots should be exponentially higher, right?
Okay.
Because it costs so much to do that. That's such a barrier to builders and to homeowners, right? They're not going to say, well, I'm not going to pay like 100 grand to feed this entire development and I'm going to foot the bill for the whole thing, right? They're not going to do that. However, a builder, if they are able to buy out all the lots, or then, you can kind of start to split that, 300 grand bill, you can split it between the 10 lots, however many lots it is, right? In terms of a subdivide, because your question was about a subdivide, that would be the best way to do it. And this is how I do it initially is I will go on Claude or ChatGPT and I'll say, hey, this is the county that I'm looking at. This is the particular address or APN number or parcel number that I'm looking at. I'm looking at possibly doing a subdivide, a minor subdivide. Please look up the minor subdivide rules and let me know what they are and if these parcels would potentially qualify. And I would at least start there to look at like the minor subdivide portion of it, because then if you can figure out the minor subdivide and it says, okay, well, you can do this, you can subdivide it into, 5 or 6 sections. Okay, cool. Now, is that feasible? Right? Because that road is still going to be really tough. Because if you don't have a road to go through there, there's no what's called physical access, right? So
Hmm.
if there's no physical access and you have to go through somebody else's parcel or somebody else's land in order to get back to yours, that's going to drop the value of it tremendously. So that's going to be your challenging piece because without seeing the parcel, but that's going
Yeah.
to be the challenging piece because there's this road that's going to be so long, and it sounds like that would be kind of like the best way is to try and actually do an entitlement process on it. That sounds like it's probably going to be the best, most bang for your buck in terms of monetary value. However, minor subdivide could also potentially work. You just have to look out for how much road frontage you have on there. And so whatever the existing road is, if it says, hey, you need 50 feet of road frontage, then each parcel has to have 50 feet of road frontage. It might say
Right.
250 feet of road frontage. So then
Oh,
how much
wow.
road
Okay.
frontage do you have before that, before you're going to build that road that goes back through there, right? Because if you're trying to dodge the price of the road and the cost of the road and bringing electric and all that back through there, you got
Hmm.
to have a whole bunch of road frontage on the front end where you can kind of slice it into different.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I can kind
It
of show
does. Yeah.
you
So,
here.
how it would be actually set up is there'd just be driveways. There'd be driveways actually going to the separate lots. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the road frontage would just be, the 10 to 15 feet that is the driveway that goes to the actual house.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me kind of show you here too, like about like a subdivide, right? We're just going to take this one really quick. All right, for example. And so if this county, there's kind of a cool little tool here. So if this county requires, let's see here, we're going to say 2629. All right, so two 2,629 feet. And let's say, let me get rid of this here real quick. Hold on. And let's say it is 80 acres. Sweet, this is a huge parcel. It doesn't even look that big. Okay, so this parcel right here is 80 acres. All right, and let's say they allow us to, let's say we can divide it by 4. All right, so we need to go 20 acres. We're going to go roughly 20 acres per parcel. All right, and if we look at this and we go, okay, 26, 29, divide by 4, right? So we can go 657 feet per parcel. All right. So I'm just going to approximate this. All right. And this is going just kind of going to give us a general idea of how we can split something up into like a minor subdivide. Right. So this one's going to have to go get a little adjusted there. Okay. We don't want that. But you can essentially then start to create a little box or boxes where you're going to get this subdividable parcel. And now you can see that like this particular drawing, right? Like let's say they allow us to do 40, which or like almost, excuse me, 4 different parcels on this, right? Now you can all of a sudden see where we're at for these parcels, right? So now you have 4 parcels. They have ample amounts of road frontage, and this one even has a huge amount of road frontage on here. So this one would be really easy to essentially subdivide because you can go horizontal. Because it's on a corner, you can also go vertical, right? You can also stack it vertically as well. Let's go to a different parcel. Like let's take this one, right here, right? Because all it has is this road frontage right in here. All right, so now if we, let's just check and see how much road frontage this is. Okay, so we're gonna say 1,300 feet. All right, and if we divide that by 4, that's 325 feet. All right, so if we perfectly parcel it out, you get 320, and we're going vertical on this one, okay? Because you have to, every piece has to touch the road. All right. And so if we go 325 feet, because that's going to be our approximation, right? We go here, here, and here, right? Now all of a sudden we have this. But the only problem though is like, let's say this county requires you to have 350 feet of road frontage. Well, crap. Now I can't go that many, right? So if I have 350 feet and I need to divide it by the 1,300 total, right? I can only get 3.7 parcels in there. All right. So now all of a sudden I can go from dividing it 3 times to now dividing it, or dividing it 4 times, excuse me, to now dividing it 3 times, because 3 times is what's going to give me that 350 feet of road frontage. Does that make, I feel like I'm explaining
Yes.
that probably pretty poorly, but
No, you're doing great.
okay. And so when you start looking at subdividing, right? The biggest thing that you want to look for is road frontage and how much that county, I should say minor subdivides, and how much that county will allow you to, like, how much road frontage do they need to try and subdivide something. And if you have something like that's like really, really far back, this is going to be a bad example because it's all county roads and it's all squares. But like, let's say you have to make a road back through here, and then like, let's say this is your lot, right? And like pretend like there's not a road on this left side here, okay? Pretend like, this is your lot in through here. There's no road here, right? And all you have is like this much. All you have is 350 feet of road frontage, right? That's going to be next to impossible to subdivide because they're not going to allow you to subdivide off of 350 feet because they require that for one parcel. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes, it does.
Road frontage is super, super important when you're looking at subdivides, especially minor subdivides. And per county is really where you want to take a look at it to determine, okay, they're going to allow me to, I mean, some are like 50 feet. Like some of the places that I'm looking at in North Carolina and Tennessee are my main markets. Some of them there, it's like 50 feet of road frontage. So, I mean, you can have like a super skinny lot in through here, right? And if you look and you're like, oh, all I need is 50 feet. Well, here's 75 feet, right? To give you an idea, like, let's take a look at what 75 feet looks like. Like, look how skinny that sucker is. And then all of a sudden I can like balloon it out, right? So then I can balloon it out to like something like this, right? Where it's now all of a sudden you have this little skinny thing and then it balloons out here and then you do another 50 feet and then it kind of balloons out to the side and then another 50 feet and it balloons out, right? So you can get really, really creative. This is actually, I mean, I love minor subdivides because it like stimulates all my creative juices and like analytical side, which is what I love. And trying to like figure out, okay, what's the highest and best use for this property and how can we essentially subdivide it the best to get the most value out of it or to make it the most sellable, right? Especially if you're looking at like homesteads, like what you are, right? Like, if you have somebody who has like a long, skinny lot and then the next person has a wedge lot, well, if you had the choice between the two, would you rather have a lot that's 200 feet wide? Or would you rather have a lot that wedges out into, 600 feet wide?
Yeah,
Everyone's
five
going
and
to go
six.
for the wedge,
Yeah,
right? So that's another thing too, is that just because it works on a map doesn't necessarily mean though that it's going to sell.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. So hopefully that, I know I kind of steered a little bit off track there, but a little minor subdivide kind of overview, if you will. So hopefully that kind of helps. It sounds like that's probably more an entitlement play. And I'm happy to talk to more offline if you want about this for sure. Um, but kind of where I would kind of look at. And if you're looking at that piece of it, maybe it's somebody who does entitlements. Maybe that's somebody who you want to try and identify and partner with on this parcel.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. That was very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any more questions or do you feel comfortable with like next steps on that?
Uh, yeah, I have a lot of other questions, but not about that particular parcel. Like you
Okay.
answered my questions for that. So, yeah.
Sure. Sure, sure. Let's see here. What time is it? 1:18. Awesome. You guys still good? I'll answer maybe like one or two more questions and then I gotta roll. But if you guys have another question, I'm happy to answer it. If not, we can always bump it to Friday if you guys are coming in on Friday too. You guys have a question? Question? Bueller?
Can I ask another question?
Yeah, fire.
Okay. So we're looking at using parcels of land for minerals. Have you
Like
done anything
mineral
with
rights?
that? Yeah, mineral rights. Uh, and right now it's zoned as agricultural. Do you know if you can actually do mineral rights on agricultural land, or do I need to get it rezoned?
That's a great question. And I think it depends on state. Now, I'm not super familiar with mineral right questions because the most mineral right questions or most mineral right things go straight to like, I always think of like Texas and Oklahoma, right? North Dakota, right? Where there's oil. That's immediately like where my mineral
Mm-hmm.
rights mind goes. Um, Give me a little bit more context around that. Like, is it like, are they trying, do you know, are there mineral rights? Like, sometimes what they'll do too is they will separate. So, what's below the surface, aka mineral rights, will
Mm-hmm.
be held and or sold separately from the land and what's on top of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sometimes they'll
So
separate the two out and sell them separately. So you can own the land, but somebody owns all the rights
the
below that.
rights, okay, to the oil or whatever is below. Yeah.
Oil, yeah, whatever gases, whatever it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have more context? Maybe I can answer a little bit more specifically.
Yeah. So in Utah, there
Mhm.
is there's three counties that primarily do oil and gas. And
Okay.
so we were looking to capitalize on those areas and actually set up. We're in connection with some people that actually do oil and gas, and so we're like, okay, what
Eat.
if we actually own the land, and then we let them utilize it for the mineral rights of being able to set up shop for the oil and gas in that area.
Yes. Love this. Keep going. What
So
about it?
so I am interested to know like what does that look like? What kind of permits do I need? Surveys,
Mhm.
whatever, so that we can actually successfully pull that off. And what does it need to be zoned as? Does it need to be zoned as like commercial because it actually is going to be sold? The oil and gas that actually we get out of the land?
That is a good question. I don't know the answer to
Okay,
all
okay.
those.
All right.
However, what I would do if I was you
Yeah.
is I would go and call the county because if it's just a few counties, they for sure run into this before.
Okay.
Right? And so this is not a new question for them. They'll know exactly what to do, how to do it.
Yeah.
Um, I would also too make sure because I've seen and heard of other people making this mistake like previously, where they think they own the mineral rights, but somewhere down the chain it didn't get recorded, or it was recorded improperly, or somebody sold it fraudulently, the like oil and mineral rights, right?
Oh, yeah.
So be very, very careful once you start pulling title and pulling the deed on the land and start looking for those type of things and make sure that you really, really, really dive in and make sure that those are things that you like want to check, double check, triple check.
Okay.
Make sure also too that you're buying some sort of title insurance on it as well if you're getting that, because if anything gets screwed up, it's covered under the insurance. Make sure whenever you buy that title insurance too that it includes some section about oil mineral rights.
Okay.
Beyond that, I don't know the answers to this thing, to these things, just because I don't do a ton of that. That's normally not my jam. However, it can be super, super, super lucrative to do those things, and it can be a real cash cow. I actually, in college, I worked at Home Depot as my kind of college gig, and the gentleman he was an electrician, and he just worked like 2 days a week. Just it was his retirement job, just something to keep him busy. He was a master electrician previously, and he owned 10 acres in North Dakota, out in western North Dakota, northwestern North Dakota, which is where the big oil boom in North
Hmm.
Dakota is. And he owned like three different parcels or three different farms, if you will, family farms, that kind of thing. One, they struck oil on one, which was like crazy. And so they have oil rigs on one of the farms. Another one, which is about 5 miles down the road, is 10 acres, but he doesn't own the rights down below it. So what he did, and this is super smart, and it's another kind of just like thing to think about. So what he did was he actually leased out the field to trucks, to the oil companies for trucks to park. They paid him $10,000 a month for 10 acres to park their trucks on.
What? That's genius. Yeah, I've seen
Yeah,
that.
I'm like,
Yeah.
duh, like,
Yeah, right.
duh, like it's just a farm field, like whatever,
Yeah.
you can till it up till it up 2 years from now and start, I mean, you might have a little bit of oil and soil issues in there because of diesel and
Yeah.
all the crap that
Yeah.
might happen to it. However, I'm going, wow, that's super smart. So like one one of his farms, like there was oil on it, and so he got mineral rights and got like a constant check from that. And then they said, oh, by the way, I have this 10 acres about 5 miles away. I don't own the mineral rights, so you can't go and check for more things, but I'll allow you to park your trucks there. And they're like, yeah, that sounds great. That'll be amazing. We'll give you 10 grand a month. He's like, done. I was like, super smart. I'm like, when are you gonna get
Yeah.
10 grand a month for 10 acres? That's $1,000 per acre per month. Like that's
Oh, yeah.
never gonna happen. But that's another thing though, too, to look like if you're in that oil country, also to consider that where people will literally buy the land and then use it for like truck parking, RV parking, like RV storage, like commercial truck storage, contractor storage, you know what I mean? Like where all you have
Yeah.
to do is put a fence up around the acreage, have an automatic gate, punch code, it's all on solar electric, you don't have to worry about a dang thing, and then they just buzz in and out, right?
Oh my gosh, that's genius.
So there's a lot of like those kind of things that you can definitely take a look at
Hmm.
in that oil country as well. Just know that like the mineral rights and the land rights oftentimes are separated out, so they're a little bit different.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's a whole different animal out in the oil country and that kind of thing. But
Yeah. What do you focus on? Are
yeah,
you
my main
doing rural
focus,
land?
I'm sorry.
Are you doing rural land? Are you doing infill lots? Like, what do you feel is like really the best way to actually spend your time?
Yeah. So what I do is I do what's called rural recreational, right? So normally that means 5+ acres, right? Think of it as somebody who's lived in the city and wants to go escape outside, wants to go shoot guns, ATV, run around and do whatever they want on their own land. So
Okay.
that's kind of what I more focus on, is that rural recreational. Now I'll buy down as low as like 1 acre for like home sites, but I don't really deal with a whole lot of the infill lots. The main reason being is, well, a couple. One is that you have to do so much volume to like make a living off of it. It becomes really, really challenging, right? So if you sell a parcel for um, $10,000, right, and you bought it for five, well,
Yeah.
by the end of it, you might make $1,000 or $2,000, and so you got to push what, 30 of those, right? To like make a decent living in a year or in a month. And that can become super draining. So I like to focus on the bigger parcels. Growing up, I grew up just outside of Minneapolis, Minnesota. just outside St. Paul, and we had 92 acres as a hunting land.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. Yeah, I'm still trying to buy it back. Is the long story short. Is we sold it, and I wish we didn't, but whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But like I grew up out there, right? Now, not every single day I grew up, but every single weekend, my dad and I would go up and we would do whatever, right? We had ATV trails. We had a little place where we could shoot bow and arrow. We had a rifle range on it. We had some cropland on it. We had a bunch of tree stands up there. We went snowshoeing and cross country skiing in the winter. I played paintball with my college buddies and, in the woods, like you got to do so many other things that you could never ever do, like living in the city.
Oh,
Fuzzy
yeah.
Devin's like, yep, absolutely, right?
Yeah.
And so that was something where, and that's kind of where my passion for the land came was that we took people who have never, especially in the Midwest, right? Everyone owns everything. It's not quite like Utah where there's national lands and you can go days on end without seeing people. In the Midwest, like everyone owns something, right? And so we would take people out onto this land and we had 92 acres to play on. And so it was like you won't see anyone else. And they were like, it was so mind blowing to them that, like, whoa, I can go out here, I can shoot guns, I won't see anyone. Like, this is amazing. And so sharing those like experiences with friends and family was like super, super cool. And I absolutely love that. When I got into real estate, I was like, man, like, like, I tried a little bit, dabbled in a little bit of everything, and then I found land, and I'm like, I remember this. I for sure that like this is my
Yeah.
jam. This is where I'm at. This is where what I really really enjoy. We ended up selling the land. My dad passed away in 2018. I was off on a sports residency. My background is in physical therapy. I was down in Arizona, and I didn't know what was going to happen, right? I was like, oh, I'm going to go work for a professional sports team, like full blown blinders on for sports physical therapy. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go work for a pro sports team, and I'm not sure if I'm ever gonna go back to Minnesota, blah blah blah. And 8 years later, now I just moved back to Minnesota, and we're like, dang it, I really want that land back. We made those good memories on, core memories on. So every 6 months, Jennifer and Devin
You
get
call
a
him.
get a handwritten card from me saying, "Hey, if you ever want to sell, let me know. Hey, if you ever want to sell, let me know. What do you think? If you ever want
Nice.
to sell, let me know." Try and buy that acreage back just because it's more sentimental to me than anything else.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
totally.
like they could name a price and I'll be like, "Okay, great. I'll just put you on terms and like I'll make it work.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. I don't care what the price is." Now, hopefully they don't see this. But I'm like, hey, like I don't care what the price is. I just want that land back. It means more to me than what I can put a price tag on. And so, and if I can't get that land back and they, create their own legacy land on it, no problem. Like I'll buy one of the neighbors. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
something around there, or, go up and just knock on the door and be like, hey, do you mind if I, like go hunt here for like a day or two? And just
Yeah.
kind of become friends and whatever, however I can stay connected to it. And so that was kind of how I like got into land. And now I'm just like full blown, absolutely love it. And trying to give people those exact same experiences to be able to have some land, go do whatever you want on, and also to then allow them to share that experience with others because like that it just doesn't happen. It's totally different when you're on your own land and you own the land versus like out in a national forest or national park or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it's different. It's just different is bottom line. But yeah, so long story short, that's why I focus on rural recreational land is to try and
Cool.
give people essentially those same experiences that, we had as a kid where, we could share the land and share a really cool area with other people.
I love that. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, and subdivides is really kind of what I'm more targeting into as well. So, if I can give people, like 5 acre parcels, and they go from, high-fiving their neighbors, out there, out the second story window, like what my first house was, in a little subdivision. Devin's smiling and
Yeah.
laughing and nodding his head over there. But, I'm like, hey, neighbor, versus, just having some room to breathe a little bit too, allowing people maybe they can't afford that 40 acres, but they can afford 5 or 10, right? And so if you can do that and give people some more room to breathe and, allow them to raise their kids in a really safe area, nice childhood and stuff like that, then like that is also what I really enjoy and want to kind of really hone in on for sure.
Cool.
So,
Awesome. Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. Does anyone else have any questions? Otherwise, I think we'll wrap it up today. So thank you guys so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. My goal is to run this every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So, obviously you guys got the times and all that fun stuff on there. If you guys have any questions too, you can always reach out to me after or before or whatever, or outside of office hours too. Always happy to look at some parcels like Devin will look at. I'm happy to look at the parcel that you talked about today. Jeff, if you have more questions, like I'm happy to take a look at that too outside of this. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, just let me know. And however I can help, that's really like the goal. And if I don't know things, I'll try and look it up if I don't know, or at least point you in the right direction of where to go. I think it'll be good for everyone to learn. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much. And
Yeah, thanks
I'll
for doing
see
this.
you either Friday
Yeah.
or next week or whenever you guys can make it. So
Perfect. Thank
sounds
you.
good.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah. See you guys.
Bye.
But let's have a conversation. I'm happy to have a conversation about it and try and help you solve kind of the next step on that, and
Yeah.
trying to figure out exactly what would be your next step. So where would you want to go from there? I would say start with the zoning and planning committee, see what it all requires, and then potentially go
I know
into
they told me it was like a $250 application fee for getting the rezoning. You got
okay.
to present it to the county, and I guess they have to vote on it, um,
Okay.
and go from there. And so that's pretty much that. Just looking at the overall layout and how this interacts. So the main reason why I'm looking at this is I'm actually located about maybe 20 minutes from
Okay.
Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
Yeah.
It's now becoming the backbone of the nuclear energy for the entire country.
Yep.
And properties like this, and there's not really any other RV parks or tiny home communities or anything like this that have that kind of river frontage and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I think that's certainly, I mean, check with the county, right? 'Cause and C2, make sure that they have jurisdiction over it and that it's not the city or the municipality or township or whatever. Make sure that figure out who owns the rights to say yes or no. And then ask them what the change in zoning process is. Sounds like there's a little application fee. That's fine. I would just point blank to ask them like, hey, how much, like how are we able to like how likely is this to actually go through? How likely are we actually able to make this happen? And see what they say and then, let me know. I mean, I'm happy to, I mean, obviously we can talk too separately about it as well, but that's
Yeah.
where I would at least start and kind of have like next steps for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have other questions about that or other questions on that as well?
No.
Okay.
As far as yeah, I know it's county has jurisdiction on it and all that, because of where it's sitting at. Um, and there is another property that was zoned for like commercial special use, probably about a mile away from it. So when I was talking with the county planning office and saying, "Hey, here's what I'm looking at," they were like, "Okay, yeah, that's." They want to see as far as if there are other parcels around that what you're looking to rezone it to match
Hmm.
that instead of, oh, hey, let's just put a commercial, special zone right in the middle of residential.
Yeah. And let me ask you this too. Do you plan on developing it or are you planning on kind of partnering with somebody else to develop it or just sell it straight off to a developer? What's your plan on that?
I'd like to partner with somebody on it.
Okay. Do you know
Um,
anyone who builds RV parks or tiny home parks?
I have not gotten that deep into it yet.
Sure.
Um,
That's all right.
it was more just trying to gather the intel and okay, it's I've reached out to a couple different people on in sub two, but haven't really some of the people I've gotten, they're like, oh no, nobody really develops RV parks or unless it's the big boys.
Sure. There are people who develop RV parks. It's just a matter of, I guess, trying to find them.
Yeah.
And that's why I say like that's why I bring up that point though is like have you started that process, right? Because as you're finding it's fewer and far between, right? There's tons of house developers, no
Yeah.
doubt about it. There's tons of house developers. Finding RV park developers is more of a specialized operation, and so that might be something to, you know, take a look at. And I would at least start putting out some feelers or start building some relationships in there as well. Love it.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Let's see here. Other questions. I'm just reading the chat here. Is Jeff, are you still here? Jeffrey, are you still here? 160 acres I'm looking to purchase. There's only 30 and 40 acres that are buildable. I'm looking to subdivide the land and sell off premium lots. What is the process to successfully do this? Great question. I love, I love this. And then it looks like Mike Purdue also too has a question. You know, it has septic or sewer. I'm assuming that was to the first piece that we were doing. Okay. I'll answer that question because it's a little bit quicker. Septic or sewer. So that would be a question where you'd go and call the county. So let me see if I can pull that back up. Let me see if I still have the